Hi, welcome to Make It Monday. I had a request to do a granny square, and so I'm going to show you how I make mine. Just bear in mind that this is not necessarily the right or proper way or the way that was original to making granny squares. This is just the way that I do it. Other people might do it differently. There are many tutorials out there on how to make a granny square. So if you don't like mine or you're having trouble following along, just stop the video and find a different one that is easier for you to interpret and understand. I'm going to try to be as simple as I can, but like I said, this might not be just exactly the way other people do it, so this is the way that I do it. There might be sometimes that I am completely confusing, and I completely and totally understand that, and if I'm confusing at all, you are more than welcome to click the thumbs down button and leave a comment. Hey, I didn't understand your video. What's going on? Can you make it easier to understand, or whatever. But don't feel inclined to watch mine or to think that mine is the only way. It's certainly not. There are many ways probably to do the same thing, and anyhow, mine's just one probably of many ways to do it. So I'm going to show you how to make a granny square Grace style, the Blueberry Bee style. Right? So to get started, you're going to need, of course, a crochet hook. I'm using a size G, but you can use whatever size is appropriate for your yarn. You're going to need a yarn needle, a pair of scissors, and some scrap yarn. The yarn that I'm using, I'm actually not going to use the yellow. I'm going to use the white, but the yarn that I'm using is a sport weight yarn, so it's more like a baby yarn. If you're using something more like a cotton yarn or Red Heart Super Saver, like a worsted weight yarn, you're going to need a bigger hook. So for this yarn, I'm using a G hook. To begin with, I'm going to make a magic ring, or what some people call a magic circle, or even a magic loop. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's all the same thing. It's basically just a really loose slip knot. So I'm just going to go around like this, and this is the tail. This piece here is the part that's coming off the ball of yarn. So I'm going to go underneath here, under the tail, and pick up that piece that's coming from the ball of yarn. And then I'm going to chain one, just to kind of secure it in there. Right, and I'm going to go ahead and chain two more, so it's a total of 3. Now I'm going to work 2 double crochets into this ring. Well, I'm going to try. 1 and 2. Whoops. That's 1 cluster. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up a little bit. We're going to make a total of 4 clusters, or what I call clusters. I don't know what they're really called, but that's what I call them. So I'm going to chain 1 to make a little bit of space between, and then I'm going to work 3 double crochets in here again into the loop. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then chain 1. Okay, another cluster. Or grouping, I guess is probably a better term, since there is a stitch called the cluster stitch. Grouping. Okay, chain 1, and 1 more grouping of 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and obviously I'm just assuming that you already know how to do these things. 3. I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to pull the tail of my magic ring or whatever you call it, magic circle, magic loop. Just pull it tight. And then you're going to find your beginning chain 3. So here it is, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go into that 3rd loop right there. And I'm going to join just with a slip stitch. Just pull it through and through. Well, if you can. There. So there's the very beginning of my granny square. So now, obviously I have to make quite a few more rounds. So you'll see that this is 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm only making 4. You can get as big or little with these as you want. If you want to leave it this size and make a whole afghan full of this size granny squares, go for it. But that's not what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to do another project with these. So I'm going to show you how to make the 4 rounds of the granny square. And we've already accomplished round 1. For round 2, since I'm not on a corner here very well, I'm going to go inside of here, just go through there, and do a slip stitch. Okay, just pull it through and through. Whoops. I lost it. Okay. And then I'm going to go into the next one, the next stitch. And I'm going to slip stitch. So now I'm to the corner. And I'm going to slip stitch into the corner. Not through the stitch, but under the stitch. Right into the corner. Right into that space. Okay? And like I said, other people might do it differently, but this is just how I do it. It's the way I'm comfortable with and the way I like to do it. So if you're having a hard time following along, or someone else does it in an easier fashion, obviously you might want to watch them, but this is just the way I do it. So I'm going to chain 3 in the corner. Okay, and I'm going to make a grouping. So I'm going to double crochet 2. That's 1, 2, and then I want 2 groupings in the corner. So I'm going to chain 1 to go between, make a space between my groupings, and then I'm going to work 3 double crochets into that same corner. And remember, we're not going through the stitch, we're going under it. We're going in the space. 2, 3. Now we have to get across to the other side, but first I want to chain 1. Now we're not going to do like we did over here, and that is we're not going to slip stitch. We're just going to skip that grouping right there and go into the next corner. So go right in there and whoops, well, don't go in. Yarn over first and then go in, because we're going to go in with 3 double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, because we want, remember, 2 groupings in every corner. There are going to be 4 corners here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we've chained 1 for a space between them. And now we're going to double crochet 3 times. 2 and 3. Whoa! That almost got wrong, didn't it? Okay. Chain 1, and then we're going to skip the next grouping and work into this corner. So yarn over and insert your hook. Do 2 groupings of 3 double crochet. That's 2, 3, and then of course chain 1. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1. Skip the next grouping of 3 double crochets. work into that final corner 2 groupings of 3 double crochets. So this is 2, 3, don't forget to chain 1 between, work another grouping of 3 double crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, and now you're going to join to the beginning, chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Join right to the beginning of that with a slip stitch. And that's the end of round 2. For round 3, we're going to start just like we did on the last one, which is we're going to want to work ourselves to the corner. So we're going to be skipping the grouping of 3 double crochets each time. So we're going to work into each space around. Okay, but the corners are still going to get 2 groupings of 3, while the spaces between only get 1 grouping of 3. So that's the difference. And so to get to the corner, of course, we're going to go into this first stitch and slip stitch in the next stitch, slip stitch in the corner, which is right here, and chain up 3, followed by 2 double crochets into the corner. Well, if I could catch the yarn, that would be good. 2, because that chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, which you probably already know. But so that's 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to chain 1, which I just did. And then we're going to do another grouping of 3 double crochets. It's 1, 2, and 3. And there's always grouping on a granny square, always a grouping, 2 groupings in every corner. Chain 1, work 3 double crochets into the next space. It's 1, 2, and 3. Chain 1, and we're to the next corner. So you're going to skip this next grouping, work 2 groupings of 3 double crochet with separated by a chain stitch in the corner. It's 2 and 3, chain 1, work 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and 3 double crochets. Wow. Follow it with this chain 1. Okay, and we're going to work a grouping of 3 into the next space. 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, chain 1, work into the corner, 2 groupings of 3 double crochets, 2, 3, whoops, chain 1, 3 more double crochets, 1, 2, and 3, chain 1, grouping of 3, 1, 2, and 3, chain 1. Now we're to the next corner. It's actually the final corner. I'm going to work 2 groupings of 3 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, 1 double crochet, 2 double crochets, and 3 double crochets, chain 1. Last grouping of 3 double crochets right here in the next space. 2, oh no, 2 and 3. Chain 1, find your beginning chain 3, just 1, 2, 3, go into that third chain and join it with a slip stitch. And that's the end of round 3. Round 4 is exactly the same as the previous rounds. Excuse me. Always working 2 groupings of 3 double crochets in every corner, and then in the spaces between you're only working a grouping of 3. 1 grouping of 3. So to get to the corner again, we're going to just insert our hook into the next stitch and pull it through and through to make a slip stitch, and into the next one with a slip stitch, and then slip stitch into the corner, chain up 3, do 2 double crochets to follow, and that makes your first grouping of 3 double crochets. Follow it with a chain 1, and then another grouping of 3 double crochets, chain 1, grouping of 3 double crochets in the next space, 2, 3, chain 1 of course, and then you're going to work another grouping of 3 here, one group of 3, and then you're going to chain 1 and work 2 groupings of 3 in the corner, and work the same as you did across the top here around the whole thing, and then I'll meet you when we're ready to join up again. This was the final round for the size granny square that I was making. So I've done this cluster. I've got one more cluster to do. I've already chained 1 between, or not cluster, but you know what I mean, grouping. I keep saying cluster, but that's not what I mean. I mean grouping. 2. My yarn's caught on something. Okay. This is 3. Chain 1, and then of course you're going to count up your chain 3 and join to the 3rd chain in that chain 3 that you made at the beginning. Now you're just going to slip stitch. Well, I say that, but it's having trouble. Okay, and then we're going to end off like any other project. So we're just going to chain 1, clip the tail, pull it through, and I always leave probably longer tail than I need. And now we're going to weave in the ends. I usually always start with the innermost piece. So I'm going to take this tail that was left of our magic ring, and I'm just going to pull that tight and go ahead and start to weave in this tail around that would-be circle. It's just what I like to do. Then of course you can turn and go back the other way through some of these other stitches, the higher stitches. And if you want to, you can go back around the bottom. And that'll really secure it quite well. You don't have to weave in the whole thing. I'm going to stop right there. Okay, and then I'm going to do this other one. I'll always work in my tails on the back side, so that this was the side that I consider the right side. It was the side I was working the whole time. And then I've just flipped it over because you can see that the wrong side is very bumpy, uneven. Okay, let's get this woven in. And of course, as I've said many times before, when I'm weaving in, let's see if I can zoom in and let you see that a little bit better. If you haven't seen my other videos where I talk about this, when you chain one and then pull that tail through, it leaves a little bump right there. And I always like to work when I'm weaving in this way across that last loop. Because if I work back this way, it's going to leave an ugly bump right there, and I just really don't like it. So I'm going to go under this stitch right here and just pull that, not terribly tight, but just cinch it up a little bit. And then I'm going to begin to work in behind these other stitches. And of course you want to work one way, and then at some point you want to turn around and begin to work back the other way. And that really helps to secure it, especially if this is for a garment that's going to be washed. You want it to be woven in sufficiently that when you wash it, it doesn't just fall apart. I did have that happen once. I made a granny squared afghan, and when I washed it, it fell completely apart, and then I was so disheartened that I had to start all over again, that I just put it away for a long time. Finally took it out and fixed it. It was extremely frustrating, so always take, even if you don't want to, just take the extra time. You'll be glad you did. Okay, so this granny square, pardon my hands, they don't have any lotion. It's just 4 rounds. It's 2, 3, and 4. If you wanted it bigger, obviously you can make it bigger. A bigger one would make an excellent dishcloth or washcloth, baby washcloth, Afghan square. I'll show you in another project later on what I'm going to use mine for. But since I had a request to show how I make granny squares, I've procrastinated long enough, and finally I'm getting this video out to you, so I'm very glad to be doing that. And then I'll be glad to show you what I'm going to do with these granny squares now that I'm finished with them. So make up a whole pile of them and just really enjoy it. It's very relaxing to me because they work up rather quickly. They're very easy. It's so repetitive that you almost can't mess them up. So I just really appreciate you watching. I'm glad that you joined me for this video. And if there are any questions or comments that you'd like to leave, just go ahead and leave a comment down below. I would be glad to read them. I read all the comments and try to keep up with replying and all of that. So just really appreciate the time that you take to watch my videos. Don't forget that you can like and subscribe, and if you subscribe, then you'll be one of the first to know when I crank out a new video and upload it for the world to see. So also, any patterns that are original to me, which is most of the patterns that I do, but the granny square is not original to me, so you won't find this on my website. But things like the bird's nest tutorial that I did, that's my original pattern. The tiniest hat and blanket is my original pattern. Things such as that I really do sit and take the time to do the patterns for. You can find them all absolutely free at my website, theblueberrybee.com. Just click on the free patterns tab, then you click on the title of the and then you click on the title of the project that you want, or the pattern that you want. A PDF window will pop up, and then you can either save it to your computer or you can print it off right there. They're absolutely free, and whatever you make from them can be sold, and you do not have to link them to me. I don't require that at all. I understand why people do, but I don't require that at all. If you take your time and your resources and you're working on that and you're getting it done, that doesn't have anything to do with me. That's all you. So you're more than welcome to sell the things that you make. So I hope that you have a good day. Don't forget to join me next time for Make It Monday. Bye.